Welcome back to another video, everybody. You might notice my hair. That's because my daughter, who is almost 11 months old, has just started getting long enough hair for my wife to do it in like this type of ponytail stuff. And so obviously my wife did this to my hair so I would match my daughter. So don't worry about the hair. This is a very serious video. We're taking a look at Danielle Smith, who just completely goes beast mode. I mean, she's going after child sex trafficking. She's going after auto insurance, and she's going after energy bills. She's going after the federal government. Danielle Smith is no joke. She is not holding back anything. And there's kind of a bit of an argument, not that anyone should make this argument, but there could be an argument to say that she's a bit more of an attack dog than Pierre Poilievre at the federal level. This could be a great video. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the just amount of information that you're going to get from this, because Danielle Smith is just, she's made me want to move to Alberta. I have to convince my wife to move there, but I mean, she's great. And if Alberta can maintain UCP leadership, if Danielle Smith can continue to grab everything by the reins and make Alberta great, kind of like the Texas of Canada, then yeah, I need a little bit of convincing. Maybe if there's like a bunch of people down in the comments who spam, "Hey, Mr. Sunshine, you and the missus should move to Alberta," I can just happen to show her this one particular video and be like, "Look at all the support, sweetie. Everyone wants us to move to Alberta." Anyways, welcome back. I'd like to encourage you right now, before we get into it, to give a like, subscribe, like, and share, all that great stuff if you haven't yet. Without further ado, here we go.
Me of the old saying about how evil only triumphs when good people do nothing. Well, not here, not in Alberta. In Alberta, good and decent people are fighting the stain of human trafficking. It's a sick trade run by sick individuals for sick ends. It persists in the shadows, destroying the bodies and minds of vulnerable, innocent people, mostly women and girls, and often Indigenous people. And Alberta's government is doing its part to end this disgrace. Unfortunately, we don't need to look too far for evidence of human trafficking in Alberta. Earlier this month, work by the Alberta Law Enforcement Response Team resulted in 3 individuals from Edmonton facing numerous human trafficking charges. In May, a Calgary man was charged with multiple offenses, including charges related to human trafficking. In February, an Edmonton man was charged with multiple offenses, including trafficking in persons. These 3 examples alone include over 20 identified victims, with police and organizations trying to identify and support dozens of victims. We can't afford to close our eyes to this problem, and we can't afford to ignore those who are at risk of being trafficked or those who have been trafficked. That's why we will be spending $22 million over the next 3 years to implement the recommendations of Alberta's Human Trafficking Task Force, which, as you know, was chaired by Paul Brandt. One of those recommendations was setting up the Alberta Office to Combat Trafficking in Persons. This office shouldn't be necessary, and hopefully one day we will no longer need it. But until that time, this office will bring together survivors of human trafficking with community partners like social services providers and Indigenous organizations who are best positioned to help find a way out and a path forward. Our goal is to create a hybrid model that extends across the province, disrupting and dissolving trafficking networks while helping survivors to recover and rebuild. To succeed, we need to understand survivors' stories and gather insights that help survivors escape and heal. We also need more comprehensive on-the-ground information about how human traffickers operate and how they hide their activities so that we can stop them in their tracks. The Alberta Office to Combat Trafficking in Persons will combine these approaches, allowing everyone involved to share knowledge so that we can better protect victims, survivors, and others at risk of exploitation. Through this office, with our partners, we are joining forces to stamp out the trade in human flesh and misery, because no one should have their lives derailed into sex work, exploited for labor, or trafficked for body parts. No one who has endured this trauma should be left to suffer in silence, and no family should be left to wonder what happened to their loved ones. Justice, compassion, and reconciliation demand action to fight human trafficking and support survivors. New and improved responses are on the way through this office and the people in it. And now I would like to ask Minister Mike Ellis to share more details.
Incredible. I mean, just like Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party of Canada, Danielle Smith maintains that well, that standard for conservatives is great speech, going after all the right things, bringing people on board, and kind of that catch line that the federal conservatives have been saying is common sense for the common people. And now we're going to take a look at some of the questions and answers that are posed to Danielle Smith. And she just, makes me, and I'm sure many other people, want to move to Alberta, and probably makes Albertans really proud. And also, I'm sure there's a lot of Albertans who don't want a lot of other Canadians moving there, but I don't blame you. When you have something great, you want to cherish it for as long as you can and not dilute it with an influx of, immigration or people coming into your province. I totally get that.
And the other one for me, a doctor's clinic in Marda Loop has been going to paid services 4 days a week. I'm curious about your thoughts on this and the precedent it sets.
Well, it won't set a precedent because we won't let it happen. There is, I signed a protocol with the federal government for 10 years committing to the principles of the Canada Health Act. That means that you cannot charge to access insured services. If that's what they are doing, they will be shut down, they will be fined, or we will withhold payments to them. So it won't be allowed to happen.
Thanks.
It's also important to note that all the questions that Danielle Smith has asked, none of them have anything to do with the child's and sex trafficking. Every single one has to do with energy and federal policies and auto insurance. So very weird that, reporters are afraid to ask the really impactful questions that are concerning kind of the most amount of people. Like, yeah, housing's expensive. Yeah, groceries are through the roof. Yeah, gas is overpriced. Yeah, that sucks, right? Money sucks. But like, people's lives are at stake. And it just seems like no one wants to really address that. Conservatives are willing to come out and say, hey, we're going to tackle this, but you don't have reporters jumping to the opportunity of saying, how are you going to tackle this? What are the priorities? That would be really great things to ask. And it's just kind of unfortunate that they're not doing that. But nonetheless, here we go. Here's the next one.
What's your message to Albertans as the RRO reaches record highs, being that one of your campaign promises was to protect them from sky-high utility rates?
My message is this is what happens when ideology runs a power grid. What we're dealing with today are a leftover and a hangover from poor decisions by the NDP. They phased out coal too early. Coal was a long-term, sustainable way to provide low power. They phased it out early, costing billions of dollars. We are still going to be paying hundreds of millions of dollars until 2030 for the stranded assets because of that investment. At the same time, they, for some reason, felt that they could bring on an equivalent amount of wind and solar and get the same amount of power as coal, and you cannot do that. Wind and solar are intermittent, and so we have had to build additional redundancy. That costs money. In addition, coal and natural gas plants are 800 megawatts. The typical wind and solar is 20 or 50 megawatts, which requires massively more transmission and distribution to be built. And as a result, because of intermittency, redundancy, early phase out of coal, we are now at a point 4 years later where people are paying up to 32 cents per kilowatt hour for power. We are not going to allow this to continue to happen. That's why we oppose the federal government's plan to get to a net zero power grid by 2035. The most recent report that was put out said that would cost $1.7 trillion. I haven't even seen an estimate of how much that would increase our power bills, but I'm told it could be up to 5 times higher. So if anybody is wondering why we are battling so hard with the federal government to make sure that we have a reasonable period of time to phase in lower emission source of power, this is why. It's because ideology from the NDP and their federal counterparts in the Liberal Party have created the problem that we have today, and we're going to fix it.
That's my only question.
Thank you.
I sure hope that they do fix it because energy costs are way too high, I think, everywhere. But why is it so expensive in Alberta? I mean, you guys have all of the oil. It just doesn't make any sense. The priorities of this country at federal, municipal, provincial level just don't make any sense. Let's just make everywhere conservative and see what happens. Who's on board? Let me know in the comments.
Rick Bell, Calgary Sun. I'm not that tall, but I'm a little taller.
Do you want to talk to me or do you want to talk to
Yes, of course. You may as well stay up there. Well, you're talking about bills, so I am talking about people's bills, except this is something you have control over. Insurance, auto insurance. The province's Automobile Insurance Rate Board has a consumer report out now which shows recently released shows that Albertans are increasingly upset about the continued increases in premiums, even to people who have clean records. And in fact, very few Albertans agree with the statement that premiums are fair and reasonable. Just so you know, the number is 4%.
I've been reading your columns.
Yeah, so
Well aware.
therefore, you know, and you know, I talked about this with you at Christmas, and you were very much committed to a change. So could you tell me, what do you think when you hear from Albertans through this report about their continued, disdain for what's happening in the insurance business?
There's no question that the insurance premiums in Alberta are a problem. We used to be able to have the lowest rates in the country, and it's not the case now. So we had a pause on the year-over-year increases. We're not allowing insurance companies to increase insurance premiums until we've had a chance to do a review. We had an interruption on that with the election and with the new finance minister. But as recently as last week, I said it's time to get going. Let's figure out what some of the recommendations will be for how we can bring rates down. We put it to the insurers. Tell us what you think you can do to assist us in bringing these rates down for not only auto but also for property. And so that process is underway. I haven't received a briefing yet from the Minister of Finance about some of the recommendations he has coming forward, but I did just put in a call to his office next week and said, let's accelerate this. We've got to get some answers for people.
And my supplementary, Mr. Speaker, is what would
That's
that
funny.
look like? In other words, your mandate letter, the mandate letter you sent to the minister, says you want to make it insurance more affordable. What is your definition of what a more affordable means? Does that mean, because I know one of the insurance companies basically say, we'll keep the rates low, but we'll give you less coverage. Well, yeah, right. But so what is your thought about what that will look like by the end of the year? Because obviously you're going to make a decision.
I can tell you a couple things.
And what do you think of insurance companies who threaten Albertans saying, we might pull out if you're not nice to us? You've read both of those.
I did read both of those. And you put into context how few people are covered by the one that threatened to pull out. Look, here's what people expect. People expect that if they have a clean driving record, no accidents, and
cheap insurance
tickets, that the rates are going to keep going down. That's what people expect. That's how insurance is supposed to work. And that's not what's happened. And one of the issues was that we've done the reversal of who pays the cost when an accident happens. So if you outdrive a very expensive car and somebody rear ends you, then you pay for the repair of your own vehicle. That's why a lot of people saw their prices go up, is that even though they had a clean driving record and they also had no accidents, they were seeing their rates go up just because of the value of the vehicle they drove. Most people think, you know what, the guy who hits me should be the guy who pays. So I think we have to revisit that policy. I think we also need to talk to auto manufacturers. It used to be that fender benders, which are the most common type of accident, were cheap to repair. Now they've got all the cameras and all this hidden damage in it. I know because I got rear-ended too, and it was a $10,000 repair bill. So we've got to talk to the auto industry.
That's a scam.
There's a better way for them to be building all those extra features in. And then we also, of course, the insurance industry raises the issue of whether people are inappropriately using the legal system in order to get a payout. And I think I want to see a little more evidence on that. And finally, I think we have to be mindful that in this province, we have a lot of risk grading happening because of our natural disasters. We had the Slave Lake fires, the Southern Alberta floods, we had hailstorms, ice storms, more fires up in Fort McMurray. And we have to talk to the industry about whether there's a better way for us to share the risk of those kinds of disasters as they occur, because we know the federal government steps in when those kind of disasters happen. And if they're paying high premiums today on the basis of what might happen in the future, maybe there's a way that we can have a conversation about better risk sharing. So those are the things I'm looking at.
And the threats about them leaving?
You know what? I think I'll believe it when I see it. There's obviously a lucrative market here because we're one of the few markets that operate on a free enterprise system. And so I think we want to work collaboratively to make sure that it's still a competitive market, but that people are being insured, which, by the way, is a mandate. You have to have insurance if you've got a bank loan on your house, and you have to have insurance if you're driving a vehicle. Because it's a mandated product, you bet the government has a role in making sure that those prices are reasonable.
Thanks.
And it hasn't been. And you've seen governments and corporations, organizations take full advantage of people for a long time. I mean, if the government, which they do to a certain extent, have, a say in how groceries are priced now, not like directly, indirectly, of course. But if they directly had that say, I mean, eggs would be like $50 a carton. Milk would be $100. I mean, the sky is the limit. You're seeing this like woke plague across Canada in auto insurance, in policies, in our schools, in the cost of living, and it's just creeping in. $10,000 for a simple fender bender, that doesn't make any sense. That is very, very hard to believe. And ask any mechanic, a good one, they'll tell you that that doesn't make any sense at all. And so there's a massive problem here with people trying to take advantage of the system. It's not just independent people, it's organizations, it's political parties, it's political influenced companies and organizations. It's just getting out of control. And so we need to really tighten up Canada and focus on people saving money and our country saving money and get back to our priorities and making Canada affordable, making Canada flourish, and making Canada competitive on the global scale in terms of our GDP and economic, values and things like that. So love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Danielle Smith, again, is just, she's amazing. She's incredible. She's made me and probably hundreds of thousands of other people want to move to Alberta, which is crazy. It's crazy. Like here I am sitting in British Columbia thinking, is it really worth my while to just sell everything and move me and my family's life to a province, 1,000, 1,500 kilometers away? Yeah, maybe. We might actually save a lot of money doing that, which is crazy to think about, but that's the reality of Canada. Thanks so much for watching. I'd like to encourage you to give a like, subscribe, share this video if you haven't yet already, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. If you want to support the channel financially, you can do so by checking out the merch shop linked right up there. Or if you want to do something for free, which is also absolutely acceptable and highly encouraged, you can subscribe right there. If you want to continue watching videos like this, you can do so by clicking or tapping right there to watch the next upcoming video. And if you want to watch a little bit of different content, but also Canadian stuff, you can do so by clicking right up there. That's my second channel, House of Canada, also known as the House of Commons Highlights. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.